So, Michael, thanks for coming today.
Absolutely. It's good to be here, man.
Yeah, so I'm here with my friend Michael Thornton, and we got one thing in common. We both lived on the coast of North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah, what town were you in?
So I was born in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is only like 15 minutes from Topsail Beach. But I also lived in Wilmington, which is a lot more known, North Carolina, for many years too. So love Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, great beaches down there.
Yeah, I lived in Bolivia.
Oh, yeah, that's
Near
right.
Southport.
Southport, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
You could catch the ferry from Wilmington over to Southport.
that's right.
Yeah, great little town, Southport. Emma and I used to take the kids to their 4th of July parties. It's really, really good, really fun. Love that town.
Yeah, me too. Is there anything you miss about that area?
Oh, Lord, yes, we miss the beach. Emma and I were talking about this recently. Love the mountains out here in Greenville, but do miss the beach. I grew up on the water. So all my years either was near a beach. My dad was a fisherman for a while.
Okay.
So I helped him fish. So the salt water has always been in my blood. My wife, Amber, grew up in the Portsmouth, Virginia Beach area. And so she always grew up on the ocean as well. So that's one thing we do miss is the beach.
I miss that fresh seafood right off the boat. Oh, and I miss the barbecue there.
Oh, yes. Nothing like Eastern Carolina barbecue.
Oh, uh, it's my favorite.
It's hard to find around here, isn't it?
The spicy vinegar.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you'll see the vinegar here, but it really doesn't have a spice to it. I
Well,
like that spice.
that has a little kick to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eastern North Carolina barbecue. I was raised on that. It's hard to. I like the other, like Kansas City barbecue, Texas barbecue. Love that, but man, there's nothing like that vinegar bite Eastern North Carolina barbecue.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. One thing I noticed moving when I moved away from there um, is I actually grew up when I was growing up down there. I picked up the high tide accent.
Oh, yes.
I've lost it over the years, but you don't have any of that.
No, I don't. I don't have that accent, but I know exactly what accent we're talking about.
Yeah.
My father-in-law has still a bit of it. He's up in Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he's been there all his whole life. And so, like when he says the word, we say the word about, he'll go about,
Yep. I still do that.
about.
Yep. I still say about,
Yep.
and I ran it about the house.
Yeah, there you go.
Water.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So
That's pretty wild.
I miss it. That was a great place.
Oh, I loved it, man. We grew, like I said, grew up down there fishing, shrimping, surf fishing. You know, that's a big part of this growing up and going on the beach. My dad would always have fish fries every year for our family reunion. So I'm talking fried fish, shrimp, coleslaw, hush puppies, crab. I mean, it was a thing.
I think we just need to stop this podcast and settle. Yeah.
So yeah, all of that stuff, I do this.
Wow. So you got an incredible story. I've heard bits and pieces of your story throughout the years. We've known each other, I don't know, how long now, maybe 6 to 8 years, maybe?
Yeah, that's about right. Absolutely.
When you moved to Greenville?
Yeah, we moved here almost 7 years ago.
7 years, yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Um, I wanted to have you come on because you've got such a powerful testimony on what the Lord's done in your life. And so I just want to explore that today and just hear some of your story, some of your dark times, and then your victories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where you want to start?
Oh boy. Well, I'd say what I could definitely. It's been a journey. I don't know. We could start there. Um, so a little bit about me, right? When I was born in North Carolina. When I was 2, my father moved us to New Jersey. So my dad, by trade, was an electrician, and he got a job up with the union outside of Philadelphia. He's a union electrician. Moved our family up to South Jersey, and grew up there. We went to church. This is a funny story. We went to a Southern Baptist church that got spirit filled on the way.
Wow.
Yep, it got spirit filled on the way. And so we would call ourselves Baptist-costal because we never left the Baptist church per se. And so we were Baptist-costal. But grew up knowing the Lord. Was baptized early on, got saved early on. And then when I was about, oh boy, about 11 or 12 years old, we moved back to North Carolina. My dad retired and moved us back to North Carolina. And so I was probably early teenage years. And that's when, I kind of started veering off the path. So, a lot of teenagers, make the wrong decisions, hang out with the wrong crowd. That was me. And so when we moved to North Carolina, I would say that was a pivotal moment. We started finding a church in the town, and I only at that point were going there because of the girls and the youth group, and so in that, yeah, no one's ever done that, right? So I started going there, but it wasn't shortly after. It was a new school, new environment. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be, liked and included. Always loved sports. I've played sports my whole life. So I played my dominant three were football, baseball, and basketball. Baseball was my favorite sport, and so I was pretty good at it. And so when I got to high school in North Carolina, made the team, varsity team, started. But with that came again some friends that didn't grow up in the church, different than I grew up with, and I just started hanging around with them. And I like to say I took the fast track, and I just started going 100 miles an hour into partying, into being with girls, and in ninth and 10th grade. I just went all out, man, and I just put myself out there. And the next thing I know, I'm just getting high, smoking weed, drinking everything. At one point it was fun. This was like the fun stage. Everything was good. You just go out to a weekend and get high, but it just progressed. And I remember at one point saying, "Man, I'll never do any hard drugs. I like marijuana and drink it, but I'll never do cocaine or anything like that." Man, it wasn't maybe a year later, if that, less than a year, probably junior in high school, that's snorting my first line of cocaine, and, would dabble in it here and there. And the more I stepped into that world, church didn't want anything to do with that, didn't want anything to do with God, and so I just gave myself there and started going and going 100 miles an hour. So long story short on that part, man, I ended up getting hurt my senior year playing football, which caused me to miss my senior year of baseball. And I would say too, that was a pivotal moment. That's when I gave up. And the sports were kind of holding me from going 100% into party. But when that happened, I just gave up. And so I was like, my senior year was a free for all. And so it was parties every weekend, hardcore drugs, and just it got really dark really fast, really fast. By the end of 12th grade year, I was already smoking crack once or twice a week. My snorting coke, doing pills, snorting pills. I mean, just it was a mess. So the first thing I wanted to do was get out of my mom and dad's house. I was like, I'm done. I'm ready to live my life. So I got a job working construction, hanging drywall at $6 an hour. So this is a long time ago.
Yes.
And got a little apartment with a buddy of mine from school, and it just became party central. Yeah. And so, yeah, we went that route for a long time. And so I wasn't proud of this season of my life or these moments, but yeah, that would be the path that really led me to addiction. For anybody that uses drugs, it usually starts out recreational, but then the more you go in it, the more you get addicted. And it's hard to always find that line of when do you cross over from having fun, I can turn this off, to you've crossed over to I don't think I can stop. Like, I have to have this.
Wow.
So I crossed that line in that time frame around 19 or 20 years old. And so I got into a place where I had to have it. Things progressed, begin to mess up at the job, begin to not keep up with my work, caused me to losing my job. So my life began to spiral. Uh, Began to get in trouble with the law, got arrested a couple times for larceny and other charges, DUI, all those things. I hit a point though here, Bo, where I was like, all right, even me at this state, I need to make a change, but I don't want to go back to church. Like, I don't want to try God. That's like, yeah,
Right.
right. I got myself into this. I'm gonna fix it kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So growing up in a military based town in Jacksonville, was home of the Marine Corps, Camp Lejeune. I wanted to try joining the military, not the Marines, any other branch of service but the Marines. We used to get fight with Marines in bars. I was like, I'm not going to be a Marine. And so I tried the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and every one of them said no because I had a record already. And so I finally went to the Marine Corps recruiter. He's like, yeah, we'll take you in and we'll do some waivers and we'll get you in there. And sure enough, they did, man. And so me joining the Marine Corps was my like effort to get out from that friend group, get out from using drugs, and start my life over, in my early 20s. And it went well. And I gotta say, bro, I love the Marines. I love that feeling with infantry. I actually joined right after 9/11. So I was joined in time of war, high time of war with Afghanistan. And so my unit was trained to go to war. And so in the first year or two, it was pretty intense. Um, but I remember probably about a year or so in, my worst fear happened, like the ultimate nightmare, which was, when you join the military, they can see you anywhere over the world for your station, your duty, 4 years. Any deployment, like I wanted to be at any base other than Jacksonville, North Carolina, my hometown, right? Like I went Hawaii, send me to Djibouti, Africa, like I'll live anywhere. Yeah. In God's providence and maybe humor, I got stationed back at Jacksonville for 4 years. So my hometown.
Wow.
And I knew deep down inside, I knew it was just a matter of time before I'd be back partying like with drugs again and of the wrong crowd. And that got me. So yeah, in the military at that point, I started doing drugs again, started hiding it, started selling it to other Marines and kind of did that for a while. And then, the Bible says that what's done in dark will come into the light.
Yeah.
And it all came crashing down. This is how it came crashing down. This was pivotal. One night at this time, I was really hooked on crack cocaine. And I was probably smoking anywhere from $200 to $300. At that time, it was a lot of money a week
Wow.
on crack. All my paychecks were going to it. Well, one night I had left the base and it was about 2, 3 in the morning. I've been high all night. I took money from a friend of mine and robbed him and went to go buy more dope. I went to the drug house, the crack house, and I went up to the door. I was high as a kite. As soon as I went in to knock on the door, all of a sudden you heard in the bushes, "Get on the ground, get on the ground, ATF, police." And I was just like, what's going on? And it was a raid, it was a drug raid. So apparently the cops had been watching this drug house I was going into quite some time. They were hiding in the bushes and they were waiting for anyone to come up and arrest them.
And you didn't even see them.
No, 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 man. They were hidden in the bushes. It was a show like right out of Cops. Like it's not over dramatizing it. It was really real like that. They came with a battering ram and began to batter down the door to get the dealer. So they got me tackled on the ground. I'm in handcuffs. I'm in uniform, by the way. I'm in Marine Corps uniform. Oh, like that, let that hit. Like, this is not good. I'm not even supposed to be off base. And now I'm in Marine Corps uniform, caught in a drug raid at a crack house, 5 crack. Like, if your life can't get any worse, and if you can't go any lower, like that's where I was at. And they took me in the house in the trailer, got the dealer, and oh, this is unbelievable. The house was so hot, meaning so much traffic was coming in. The phone was ringing off the hook. So the cops, they would turn the lights out. They would make us be quiet on the couch. They would get back in the bushes and a cop would answer the phone as if he was a drug dealer and say, "Come on, I got you 20, 50, 100." And people would come and they did the same thing they did to me. They did it 7 times. So after an hour, 2 hours later, there's 7 of us now handcuffed on the couch. And I'm like, this is really happening. I'm the only one in the Marine Corps uniform. I'm with crack addicts and everything else. So that was a bad night. That was a bad night. They turned me over to the military police, and I went to prison, went to jail in the Marine Corps. So that was it. That was over. My military career was over, and it was over in a very bad way. So again, to go to the bottom of the barrel, I'm in prison now. I've messed up my life royally. There's no hiding it. My mom and dad know. Everybody knows. I'm a mess. My unit gets orders to go to Camp Fallujah, Iraq to fight.
Whoa.
1 week later. And because I'm incarcerated, I don't go. So I miss that trip and they go to war. Looking back now, it's the providence of God. Half of my unit got killed over there.
Wow.
Friends that I served with are now dead. They're not here anymore because of that. I knew if I would have went over there in that state of mind, I wouldn't be here today. No, no way. And so again, that's just, you can't make that up. But so even in that bad state, it was like God used that to protect me. So in prison there. And so It was a low moment. It was a dark moment. How did I get out of that? Mm, Thank God for good parents, right? I had a godly father that that never gave up praying for me and my mom and my sister. And they came down and basically pleaded mercy to the commanding general of the base, went to his office. And he got involved and he came, he talked to my sergeants, and they had a meeting with me in the cell. And basically, like, hey, we believe you're a good Marine. We believe you're a good guy. You got tangled up and you're messed up and you need help. So we're gonna give you an option. We can discharge you from the military with a negative, bad discharge on your record. You'll got record for life, or you can stay here for another 5 years and serve out your sentence. So I was like, get me out. I'll take the negative discharge. I don't want to stay in here 5 more years. And so that's what they did. And once I got out of the military, obviously I was very thankful for my family, but I was still hooked on drugs. And so I took off. I took off and went and moved in with a crack dealer. And that was the darkest probably moment of my life. So also, when you give your life over to some type of substance at that level, it takes everything from you. It takes your dignity, it takes your pride, it takes character, it takes everything. And the only thing that I cared about was getting high. It was that strong. And so I moved in with him and I lived with him. And so basically I lived for a short period of time with him as a slave. There's just no other way to put it. It was a slave. And so what did that mean? He would feed me dope, which would keep me high in return for favors. Some sexual, some deliveries, some drug drops, and just it was just a nightmare to live that way. And so that was definitely the worst, lowest moment of life. At that time, sexually, I'm confused, men, women, and everything in between. Like there was no grid. I had no filter. Um, after a good bit of living with him in that state, I remember being suicidal. I remember wanting to kill myself multiple times. And I was like, I have something has to change or I am going to take my life.
Yeah.
At 24 years old, I'm going to take my life because what do I have but a bad honorable discharge from the military? My car's been repoed. I've lost everything. I've lost my family. I have no relationships in my life except this drug dealer and people I do drugs with. And I have nothing to live for. At 24, I'm ready to take my life. And God works in mysterious ways. So how did I get out of that situation? One night, I had the bright idea. I'm gonna rob my drug dealer. Oh, yeah. Not the smartest thing to do. No. So he was on Klonopins and a bunch of prescription pills and sleepy one night. And so I knew where he kept his stash of crack, took it, swiped it, and left. And he was knocked out, left, got high out of my mind, and then went over and stopped at another friend's house. Next thing you know, he woke up, came with a group of guys, found me, and destroyed the vehicle, the house we were in. This is bad. Guns, bad. It's like, oh, you're gonna die. So they apprehended me and kidnapped me pretty much, brought me back to his house. He put the gun on the table, on the coffee table. It's 4 a.m. It's like on the day. And he goes, get my money in 60 minutes or I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna put a bullet in your head.
60 minutes.
Yeah, you get 1 hour.
How much money?
It was only $500. So I was just like, so I called my mom and dad. And they were just, or I hadn't talked to them in months. They know I'm on drugs. And so I'm just pleading for help. Long story short, my dad says, on one condition, that you go get help because you can't do this anymore. I said, okay, I will. And out of a scene out of a movie, it's like a ransom drop. They take me with bats and guns in the vehicle, drive me to a gas station to meet my father as the sun's coming up. My dad pays him the $500. They let me go, and I go call my dad and they speed off. My dad takes me home. He goes, I found a drug rehab center. He goes, "It's either there or the sheriff's department. You make the call." And I said, "Take me to the drug rehab center." So we drove straight. I had a literally 2 hefty trash bags, drawstring trash bag of clothes. At the time, I had lost the repo. My car was repoed. I had 0 money, obviously. I hadn't showered in forever. I had, whatever clothes I had were dirty was in those trash bags, and I had a current warrant out for my arrest
Oh,
for larceny, for stealing gas at a gas station. I had a current warrant out for it. That's where my life was before I met the one who would change everything. That's where it was at 24. And so I went to the rehab. My dad just spun off and dropped me off. And I honestly, I didn't want to be there. I didn't have anywhere else to go. And so I knew I had to walk through this. And so, Bo, I went there. Oh man, I went there and the guy that met me, now get this, the guy that met me, David Hill, who was the administrator, goes, "You know you're not supposed to use drugs for 72 hours before you come in here, right?" And I go, "What are you talking about? I've not used drugs." You know, when you're at it, you lie like second nature. You know, I've been up for 4 days. Obviously, he could tell, like, I'm not fooling anyone. And he said to me, he goes, "I'm gonna ask you a question." He said, "Based on your answer, I'm not gonna let you into this rehab." And you start walking. And we're in the middle of nowhere in the country, in North Carolina. He goes, "Or if you tell me the truth, I'll let you." He goes, "Have you used drugs in the last 82 hours?" I mean, my lips were still hot from the crack pipe, probably 3 hours before that.
wow.
And I was getting ready to say no. And as soon as I could form my mouth to say no, he goes, "Stop me." He goes, "I already know the answer." And then he said something I'll never forget. He goes, "You've lied your whole life. It stops now. Tell me the truth. Did you get high?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's what I'm looking for." He said, "Because you told me the truth, because you told me the truth, I'm gonna let you." When you look back now, it's like, what if I didn't tell the truth? Where would I be today? Our life is made up of moments, and I believe what we do in those moments really defines, could even like many years of our life. And I look back, and that was a defining moment that would define probably the next 20 years at least of my life. And so when I walked in that rehab center, broken, disgusted, suicidal, I was like, I don't know what to do. So the only thing I remembered to do from my childhood days of going to church was to look up to heaven and say this statement. I said, "God, if you're really real and save my life, change it, do something, let me feel you. You have to do something in me because I can't do this anymore." And I just remember collapsing, and I probably let out like a release of tears and screams. It's on a dirt road around, nobody around. And then I haven't had an emotional outburst like that probably in a decade. And so that was, I feel like, a huge turning point because I'll begin to feel that love from God, from Jesus that I've never felt in my life, begin to hit me in that moment. So what I always say, though, is that, gosh, what I love about God the most is that in our darkest moment, we can find our best moment. And that was my best moment. And my best moment wasn't in a job or a car or even a family. My best moment was in a person. You know, that was the changing point in my life.
You had to come to a point of like just being totally humble, or goes along as we've heard some people say. Um, there's other ways of describing that, but you just it was your turning point, right?
Massive turning point.
Just being honest with yourself is really what you're doing.
Yes, I finally stopped running and I began to face the pain and face all my consequences and all the people I hurt and all the things I did.
Why do you think we as humans and all of us do this? Want to run from pain?
It doesn't feel good. Yeah, I know that when pain hits, it does not feel good. And yeah, it's in our nature to run from it. It really is in our nature to avoid it, to numb it, to run from it. And I did all the above. But I've learned that true healing can only come we embrace it.
Yeah, to embrace.
Yeah.
Embrace the hard.
Embrace the hard, embrace the pain. It's the only way. On the other side of it is healing. On the other side of it is restoration. On the other side of it is a new chapter, but you have to, I just think that's so true in life and anything where when we go through something painful, I believe if we don't embrace it, if we don't walk through it, I feel like our growth of our development will even be stunted, as a result. But as painful and as hard as it may be, it's so worth it if you walk through it. Because I've always said this on the other side of that pain, on the other side of that trauma, on the hardship, is a level of joy and a happiness that cannot be bought or found. It can't. So my saying from that is redeemed pain is always the birthplace of joy. True joy
Redeemed pain.
is the birthplace of all true joy. And if you think about it, like anything that you've really been joyous about in life really has come on the backside of something you've worked hard for, yeah, or went through hard or difficult, right? I think one of the presidents, President Roosevelt, had this quote of, "If you haven't wept over it, if you haven't been beaten over it or bled over it, then is it really worth having?" It's that same principle.
Yeah. But in our society, we don't want to do that.
No, we live in a society that avoids pain at all costs.
Yeah. Instant gratification.
Instant gratification.
Throw things away, people away.
Yes.
Just quickly, just don't eat.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We avoid it at all costs. We numb it. We want comfortable.
Yeah.
We like comfort. So pain is not been something that's been embraced at all.
It's something that I've thought about a lot since the first time I heard your story was I've heard stories. I personally have never been addicted to drugs, so I don't understand
Mhm.
being in that and coming out of that. But I have other things that I've had to walk out on my own. Um, but I've heard stories from other people, or maybe even watched a movie or that the DTD when you're detoxing.
DTs, like the shakes.
Yeah, going through that whole thing, and I was talking to a friend of mine who still hasn't been able to get away from alcohol, and when he does for a little bit, he starts shaking, goes through all the stuff, and then he just goes right back to it.
Yeah.
How were you? What did you tap into?
Mhm. It's a great
Because
question.
that had to be
Yeah,
incredibly hard.
great question. What I loved about the program that I went to, it was a long term in-home facility. So it was a 40-acre campus. There was about 50 guys in the program, ranging from like 7 years old to 18, and everyone at different walks of life, everyone at different stages of addiction. So we were all going through it. So for us and for me personally, it was a level of detox. So in the journey of healing over an addiction of any substance, whether it's a controlled substance, whether it's cocaine, crack, drugs, marijuana, food, um, I mean anything. The three stages of healing is detox, detox, rehab, and the recovery. So that detox stage is when your body has to release all those chemicals.
Mhm.
So the first 30 days in that program is that it's designed for you to flush out those chemicals. So for me, I didn't have the hardcore shakes like that, thank God, but I did have a lot of nightmares, dreams, and thoughts and urges to smoke crack because that was my number one drug of choice. So much so that every night almost it seemed I had a dream of smoking a hit of crack. It was so real that when I would wake up from my bed, I was holding my breath in like I just took the hit and exhaling, and I could actually taste it in my mouth. So it messed up your bowel movements. So even the thought I did walk through this, even physically, the physical reaction, even the thought of using in those early stages, those first 30 days would trigger my bowels. I would have to go to the bathroom. So I had to endure that. I had to almost let my body be retrained a little bit to not, even if those thoughts came, to not let it regulate my bowel movements or me go to the bathroom. And that just took time. It just took time to adjusting to the program that they had in place for us.
But you could have just walked out the front door and walked down the road, right?
100%. Yes.
Like faith and kept you there
Free will.
to
Yes.
go through, endure that pain, but then
Yes.
you haven't got to the peace or the joy side yet.
Yes.
What would you want to tell anyone watching?
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's a great point though, because it was like I had just had started the recovery process. And so the pain was still real. The physical effects were still real. But at the same time, I was also feeling this level of hope and healing and love that I've never experienced in my life. So intention, I'm holding detoxing, but at the same time, hope. And the first time I've had hope forever, for a long, long, long time. And so that was huge. Having hope was a big part of what helped me in those early stages recover. Knowing that, you know what, my life is worth living. You know what, maybe I'm not a deadbeat. You know what, maybe I wasn't born to be a crackhead. You know what, maybe I can contribute something to society. Maybe I do have something to give and offer. That thinking, that hope, that was from the Lord. That was a huge that kept me in the game in those early stages for sure. Yeah, I would tell anybody that way, hope is huge. Having hope, not losing hope is a really, I feel, critical component to being healed up, even for men.
Mm, I would assume that some of that hope came just supernaturally when you cried out to the Father, and then maybe some of the hope also came from the counselors,
Mhm,
maybe some men who have already a little bit ahead of you. So it's important to cry out to the Lord, like get that point of just I'm done,
yes.
and then you didn't do it alone.
Mhm,
And I think so many times we want to do things alone. Oh, I got this. Our shame, our guilt, we don't want anybody to know, right?
absolutely.
So we want to stay alone
Mhm,
in this. But what you're saying is you need him,
mhm.
and then you need a group around you,
You have to have a group around you.
a community.
You have to have a community. It was essential to healing. Without a community, that would have never worked. Never would have worked. I remember a guy named Robert Russian. This brother, at the time I'm in my 20s. At the time, this guy's in his 50s. He had smoked crack for 4 years. And I'll never forget, he came to me. He was a little bit further in the program. And he said, Michael, I didn't think you could fit a dog, a house, 2 jobs, a career, and a crack pipe, but I've managed to do it twice in my life and lost everything twice. Everything. And he goes, but I'm here. I'm being delivered on every day, getting better. It's going to be okay. People like that were huge in my healing because they were encouragers and they were encouraging me. And it gave me strength to know, okay, if this guy is making it, if he's doing it, then I know I can too. Like I can make this journey. So the community piece was huge. Here's one more thought on about. This is a really good. You ready for this? I was thinking about this the other day. Do you remember when Jesus has to die? Like he's carrying the cross to go to the hill of Calvary?
Yes.
Like Jesus, who is the Lord, the King of the universe. Here he is beaten in this weakened state. He's carrying his cross and he's fall. The Bible says he falls many times and he's getting beat. And there's a guy named Simon from Cyrene, who is appointed by the Romans to help Jesus carry his cross because Jesus hits a point where he's physically unable to lift that big wooden cross. So Simon carries it for him to the hill where he's crucified. And I thought about that the other day and I wondered, wow, if Jesus, the King of the universe, couldn't finish his assignment or couldn't finish his purpose, which was dying on Calvary, without the help of someone else helping him cross the finish line, how much more do we need people in our life, community in our life, relationships in our life to get to where we need to go? I'm a firm believer in that.
I had never thought about that.
Yeah, now, wow.
So good.
Yes, wow.
The Son of Man.
The Son of Man even needed help at his weakest moment to get to Calvary. He physically couldn't carry that cross. And I do think that's a message to us. I think that's a point to us that, we can only go so far on our own.
Mm,
you know? And I think the abundant life, the fuller life is really hidden in the relationships around us,
yeah,
if we can take time to see that.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, man. I had to marinate for a second. Like that just encourages me,
Yes.
because it's you just want to go battle on your own sometimes.
I got this. I got this. Correct.
Woo. No, you don't.
No, you don't. And I'm a fact of that. I did it for 10 years and they got me to a prison and a rehab before I finally understood how important other people are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So good.
It's really good.
What happened next?
So basically from there, everything began to shift and change. Now I had to do the hard work and I stayed there for a year, staying on as an intern. And at this point in my life, I'm excited. I'm like helping guys. I'm starting to do lessons and teaching some and facilitating small groups for other guys coming in the program, helping lead them to the Lord, get free. So I'm excited. I'm working at the pallet shop they have because all my room and board is taken care of. My paycheck a week for working 45 hours a week was $20 a week, $20 a week, $20 a week.
Wow.
Now everything else to take care of, my housing or that was just gas money. I was happy making $20 a week, working that hours because I was doing something effective. I was finding my purpose, right? So I was content staying there the rest of my life. But God had a different plan. And basically my next step was to go to college. I never thought of going to school. I was terrible in school. I'd been in the streets for years. And so it was quite intimidating actually to think about going to a college. But God opened the door, and I ended up going to a small Pentecostal Bible college in North Carolina, where I met my wife, Amber. And so after I left the program on really great terms, finished my time there, I went in and entered in Bible college. And I really felt a call to go into the ministry and to help people. And that's what landed me there.
Is that the first time in your life you felt
Yeah.
called into ministry?
Yeah, I would always have people, even when I was young. Well, I did have this is a great question. I had this happen. It took me a while to figure it out. When I was real young, like back in New Jersey days, I would have people from the church go, "Hey, you're different. Something about you, God's hands on you." They would say things like that. Wouldn't mean anything, and that wouldn't think about it. But even when I was on drugs, like right at the height of my addiction, when I was partying, like, I would be in the room with guys smoking weed, snorting cocaine, drinking, I mean, debauchery everywhere, and they would just in the middle of nowhere go, "Why are you here? Aren't you a preacher, son?" Like, my dad,
Wow.
I had a guy used to say, "I think you're gonna be a preacher one day. Are you gonna preach? I could see you as a preacher." As we're hot as a kite. And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't wanna go to church. I don't like God." It's kinda funny now looking back, but, I had those things, what I'm saying in that is I never fit in. I kinda I never fit in. I never fit in using drugs, like, in the drug culture as much as I was in it, I never fit in it.
Right.
And now, I'm in the church world and church culture, and I'm trying to find my place. I don't really fit in either because I have such a radical story, like, church people don't know what to do with me.
Right.
And so I'm just kinda, like, all over the place. It's like, "Lord." But that landed me. That's what got me to Bible college, and I really felt the tug anyway to go into ministry. And didn't know all what that would look like, but I just kept taking steps forward. Found Amber, and we met. We met the first semester there. And man, if anything, I feel like God brought me to that college to meet her. My wife. Today we've been married 18 years. Come on, come on. 5 kids later, right? We have 4 daughters and 1 son, 4 teenage daughters and 1 son. Our son's the youngest. All of those are my miracle babies. And Amber's my miracle wife because I have vowed and declared I would never live to see 24. The thought of being a dad, 5 times over is just it's beyond comprehension for me.
The quiver's full.
The quiver is full, man. And I've seen God's redemption work out in so many areas of my life. It's just been unbelievable.
Wow. And I've been around your wife and kids, and your kids are like, and I'm not saying this because you're saying right here, but like, they're amazing. Like, you can see the Lord on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even when they're just being kids.
Yes.
So you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
absolutely.
it's just there's such a it's just a purity about them.
Mm,
Yeah. So I think you guys have done a great job.
man, thank you, man. I feel like sometimes we fail a lot. sir. But Amber and I've always said, okay, we could these three things. If our kids stay in love with God, if they want to hang out with mom and dad, and still have, a desire to do things in life that can help them, then we're doing good. If we can have those three things in them, then we're doing okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So now you're a pastor.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your
This church, is it your first head pastorship?
it's not. So the journey, the pretty much the journey of ministry post all the addiction stuff is after college, two things begin to happen. The Lord began to open up doors for me to go speak and share my testimony everywhere, which I've been in many places through God's grace, hard places, from mental institutions to prisons to jails to drug rehab centers to detention centers, and everywhere in between. And so sharing my story has been a big part of my life, big part of my life. And so that opened up so many doors with that in education. Like I was saying earlier, I did not want to go the educational route, but that's the route God had me go on. So so basically, I started itinerant ministry for years. Then I started pastoring churches. Came on staff at a pastor. I served as a senior associate pastor in a church in North Carolina for about 7 years. There was a time where Amber and I had our own nonprofit ministry for helping youth and young adults in revival in the nation, national. And we had a tip ministry that we took all up around the country, feeding the homeless, birthing food pantries, and we got into this mix of really helping inspire, encourage young people to follow God through their relationship with Jesus and giving back to the poor and the broken in the community. And so that's been a real big part of our life and story for many years. But now we're in Greenville, South Carolina. That we've been here for almost 7 years now. And so yeah, currently my wife and I serve as pastors at Catch Fire Greenville.
Wow. So I don't want to get you in trouble with your elder board, but what is the most rewarding from the tent ministries to the
Mm,
starting food pantries to now you're leading a whole entire church? What's been the most rewarding?
that is a great question. I'm gonna say it's the same answer across the board on all those seasons. It's people. It's I guess for someone who's really called, like, to really for this to really sink in. And I'm not just talking about call to ministry, like just feel a calling on their life, even in the marketplace, to bring God in that environment, any environment. It's people. Like there's nothing like to me when the light bulb comes on in somebody's heart or eyes of God's real, or they give their heart to the Lord, or maybe they go through a healing moment, or maybe they're fired up, or maybe all the dots begin to connect, or everything aligns for them, and everything just starts unlocking spiritually for them. That drives me through the roof. That I will take off running. I could run through a wall. I could hit a brick from that, man. I don't know. I get such a joy at seeing families come back together,
Yeah.
hearts healed, reconciliation.
Mm.
That I'll never forget. In one of the services at the rehab center I was at when I was early on in my faith, it marked me. And I remember one of the guys in the program who's a dad, had two small children, had been addicted to methamphetamines for 15 years, got free, and was graduating the program. That Sunday, his wife and two small children came and he shared his testimony. And I'll never forget, in the middle of his testimony in the church at the altar, the kid, one of his sons, like 8 years old, is in the chair, pops up, runs in the middle of his speech, and runs up screaming and crying in tears. I got my dad back. I got my dad back. They hugged him, and they both were weeping. The whole church is like, I'm done. And I remember that moment, it marked me, and I go, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to see that happen. I want to see people come back together, families put back together, people come alive spiritually. Like that's my favorite.
Oh, that's my favorite though. It's so refreshing to hear that from a pastor because, and I know you, so it's not like we don't know each other, and
Right.
you're just on this podcast or saying whatever to make yourself look good. Like, I know you, and I know what you just said is so true.
Mm.
It's not about building a ministry and he's got the biggest food pantry and this, that, all the different things. Like, it's just so refreshing to hear that you just want to see people
Yeah.
redeemed
Yes. Yes.
and know truly what the Father thinks about them.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Yeah, that's it. None other.
It's so good. Oh,
Awesome.
yeah. And you and I share the same. I have a passion that people are messy. We're all messy, including me. But at the end of the day, I just want to see people healed
Yes.
and walking in what God's called them to do.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be their job per se, but just daily walking, whether it's at a job or whether if you happen to work in ministry, it doesn't. None of that really matters to me.
Mhm.
Is walking each day with their head held high, knowing that the King of Kings
Yeah.
who
Mm.
spoke this world into existence loves you.
Come on, bro. That's it. I mean, that's it, man.
Oh, yeah,
That's it has eternal like ramifications. That's why I think too I love about it. Like it's while there's a level of man, it's awesome what happens here on this side of earth. There are man, this that carries over in that person's life into eternity.
yeah,
And which is like, man, it's just next level. It you can't put a price tag on that, is what I'm saying, you know?
yeah, no,
It's unbelievable.
no. Mm. So 3 hours from now,
Mhm.
you're gone. What message you want to leave to people?
Oh, very simple one, but very profound one. Trust in Jesus with everything you have. If you trust in God, everything else will fall into place for your life. If you trust in Him, He really will guide your path in life. He will guide everything. That's actually my number one prayer for my kids that I pray for my children. If I pray, Father, if they would just learn to trust you with their life, man, I'm a happy man. Because I know that if they can do that, everything else will fall into place. And so that's what I would say to somebody. Put your faith and your trust in Jesus and God. He is the only one that will never let you down and carry you through. Yep.
Mm, that's so good.
Now,
So good. And the cool thing is, like, you're not just saying that.
and
You're not parroting that because you heard it from somebody else.
right,
You've walked it out
walked it out,
many times in your life.
walked it out. You know, many. This is how true it is. It's actually a mantra in my family with my mom and dad, us, and then my kids. So it's tri-generational. It's like a mantra in our family because um my father especially when I was on drugs, you know, our relationship was estranged for 10 years. And my one thing my mom and dad never stopped doing was praying. So at my worst, they were praying. They had me on every prayer list in America, probably. They had every pastor in North America who knew my name praying for me, probably. You know, they were just relentless like that. And I admire that because they did it for years without seeing any fruit. Think about out there if you have a child that may be not going down the path they should be going, and as a parent, you see that, and you're praying for God to intervene, or you're praying for something, but nothing's happening, like year after year after year, and then finally something does happen. You know that persistence, and so it was trust. It was looking back at that. It was my parents trusting God with my life, even though it didn't look like it would ever happen. And I think that's huge, and that's why it's real personal for us, I've seen it to be true. So that trusting in God has impacted 3 generations of my family
Wow.
in a positive way, grateful way, like huge.
Mm. I appreciate your time today.
But this was great. Thank you for having me, man. I really, really do appreciate opportunity just to share just a little bit of what God has done in my life, and I hope it encourages somebody.
Oh, it's going to.
Come on, come on. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Bo.